During the last year, we've brought you repeated reports of disturbing issues surrounding the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. UNRWA provides humanitarian for Palestinian refugees. Critics argue it's been corrupted by ties to Hamas. They also say there's evidence to prove it. Chris Mitchell has the story from Jerusalem.
The site at this bomb shelter has been called a massacre within a massacre. That day on October 7th, Hamas terrorists murdered 16 Israelis hiding in this bomb shelter after fleeing the Nova Music Festival. They also kidnapped several, including Israeli American Hirsh Goldberg-Polin. In addition to being with Hamas, the man leading that part of the massacre had another job.
Muhammad Abu Itiwi was a Nukhba commander in the El Burej battalion of Hamas's Central Camps Brigade. He has also been employed by UNRWA since July 2022.
You have employees of UNRWA who were leading the massacre.
A report from Amichai Chikali, Minister of Diaspora Affairs and Immigration, documents those employees who took part in the October 7th massacre. He tells CBN News Hamas's infiltration of the agency has been widespread.
The entire system, because Hamas is in power, so if you want to be an UNRWA employee with a very nice salary, you must be related to Hamas. So UNRWA employees in Gaza were mainly all Hamas militants, all Hamas civil organizations personnel, all the families of Hamas militant and members. If you're not connected to Hamas directly or indirectly, you cannot work in UNRWA in Gaza.
Evidence of this relationship is why the Knesset recently overwhelmingly passed a law that Israel divorce itself from UNRWA.
You have to understand again the spirit of the bill. We have nothing against international community, against foreigners, against the idea of humanitarian aid. This is what Israel is providing. It's about the fact that UNRWA participated in the massacre of the 7th of October.
After the vote, UNRWA claimed the law would be disastrous.
Today, millions of Palestinian refugees fear that the public services on which their lives depend will soon disappear. They fear that their children will be deprived of education, that illnesses will go untreated, and that social support will stop. 17,000 UNRWA personnel in the occupied Palestinian territory fear that they will lose their employment. The entire population of Gaza fears that their only remaining lifeline will be cut.
Legislation co-author Boaz Bismuth disputes those claims.
There will not be a vacuum. It's not because, they were helping yesterday, someone else cannot do the job tomorrow. The job will be done. Because I will ask you the same thing in Gaza. You can tell me, Hamas is reigning in Gaza. You kick them away, so all control, someone else. It's as easy as that. And it will be found. Other people can do it, and will do it beautifully without being terrorists.
Chikali's report cites how UNRWA has perpetuated Palestinian refugees for generations.
The fact that we have an entity solely for Palestinian refugees that can inherit this status to their kids, grandchildren, and grandgrandchildren, creating more and more refugees every year. And then you have the rest of the world, UNHCR, refugees entity that is for any other refugees in Africa or Asia or Haiti, it doesn't matter.
His report contrasts UNRWA and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR. Overseeing 5.9 million refugees, UNRWA employed 30,000 workers in 2023. That same year, UNHCR employed 18,000 while overseeing 59 million refugees worldwide. Chikali says the difference goes even deeper.
Because the UNHCR is not an ideological entity related with the war against the state of Israel. And UNRWA is part of a war. It's a war. It's a war machine. It was designated to train the Palestinian younger generation for jihad. That is the reality. And also when you go physically and you go and you see in schools of UNRWA, in so many cases, beneath the schools you have tunnels. Within the schools you have ammunitions and missiles and weapons.
It's why many in Israel want UNRWA abolished and support UNHCR to take its place. But in a statement, UNHCR tells CBN News, as we with other UN agencies have previously warned, UNRWA is the only entity with the capacity to deliver the scale and breadth of assistance that 2.2 million people in Gaza and millions of other Palestinians in the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan need. As the UN Secretary General has stated, there is no alternative to UNRWA. Yet critics cite that UNRWA's most lasting and infamous legacy is its education system. Many principals of UNRWA schools in Gaza were also Hamas members. Chickley says it takes a village to raise a terrorist and that UNRWA helped teach a genocidal ideology.
This is the Palestinian ideology, this is UNRWA ideology, and by the way, it's also very, very important to understand the jihadist ideology, to train the kids to hate, anti-Semitism, to teach them that the war against the Jews and killing the Jews, that is the most important thing on earth. And this is also a part of what we saw on October 7th.
Under the Biden administration in 2023, the U.S. became UNRWA's largest donor. In Donald Trump's first administration, he ended the agency's funding. Most here hope when he takes office in January that he acts quickly to do so again. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Let me repeat at the close of Chris's remarkable story there in his reporting what he said, that last year the U.S., using your tax dollars, was the largest contributor to UNRWA. And the UN Secretary General says there's no better option. I think the international community can come up with a better option. Do children and families need and deserve food and medicine and real education? Absolutely. But to do it with people who are also terrorists is absurd, and I think the international community knows it. And a large piece of funding is probably about to go away because when Trump comes in, I can't imagine he's not going to yank that budget again.